Hello and welcome to my masterclass, Root Causes of Digestive Conditions. So let's go ahead and screen share. Okay. So I want to take you through the steps to discover your digestive root causes. So I think that this is extremely important because we have a tendency in Western medicine to treat the symptoms. So if you're having heartburn or symptoms of heartburn, they assume it is too much stomach acid, put you on an acid blocker. If you are having constipation, you're given a laxative. So it's not addressing the underlying conditions. And what can happen is when we just treat the symptoms, we are creating bigger problems down the line. And also just an opportunity for these symptoms and these problems that are brewing underneath to keep rising up and keep exacerbating. And it can be a domino effect down the line of causing bigger issues. So let's get into what we can do. So first, my name is Nicolette Fraza. I am a registered dietitian with a Master of Science in Food and Nutrition. And I have certificates in functional nutrition and digestive disorders. I myself have suffered from gut conditions. So about 12, probably 15 years ago, I started having issues. I was intermittently constipated, bloated, food sensitivities, headaches, super tired, skin issues, acne. And I kind of put it off for a while. It would go away, come back. And then I eventually went to my doctor. And I, at this point, was just becoming a dietitian. I had just finished my internship. And she told me it was likely just IBS and I should follow the low FODMAP diet. So she gave me the sheet on it. And I was familiar with it. As I said, I was just becoming a dietitian, but it was still really confusing. I tried it briefly and it was very restrictive and I didn't really feel better. So I stopped doing that. I did try other elimination diets. I tried supplements. I tried lots of stuff. And then I really started researching more. And this is what led me into where I am now, this love for helping people with digestive issues, because I really had to figure it out for myself. And luckily I have the background of being a dietitian. I know the way things work in our body, but it still took me a while to really figure out what my root causes were. And I believe at this point it was when I was about 5, I got really bad Lyme disease. I had to go on antibiotics, IV antibiotics. And I do think that that was like a starting point of some gut issues, even though I didn't have symptoms from it for a long time. Lyme disease is known to affect your GI tract. And then antibiotics, obviously, are going to create dysbiosis as well. And then in high school, I had some restrictive eating patterns for a while. I was not eating enough. I also exercised a lot. I was on multiple sports teams. And I eventually lost my period. I had to go on birth control when I was 16 to try to, mask whatever was going on, just give her period. So I was on birth control for a while, which also is linked to causing leaky gut. I also, I think that it was also situational stuff. I had a lot of stress. My mom was sick for a really long time, so that was extremely stressful. I also, because I was having headaches for a while there, I was taking a lot of NSAIDs. I was drinking alcohol in college, excessively. So I think there's a lot of stuff that came later that kind of piled on top of those foundational root causes. So anyways, and then just a fun fact to throw in there. I have been plant-based since I was 5 years old. So it started with just my love of animals and not wanting to eat them. And it has continued for all of the reasons, environmental, health, and I don't require anybody to be plant-based, to be vegan, be vegetarian. I don't think the label is important, but I do really have a passion for helping people love plants and how to incorporate them and make them taste delicious and the way that you feel from eating more plants. So if you're thinking about, how to add more plants into your diet, I am your girl. So some fun facts about your gut. So let's just get acquainted with what is going on in your midsection to start with. So your GI tract, so it could be called GI tract, gut, digestive tract, So there's different names for it, but it is essentially from your mouth, your esophagus, to your anus. And it really is like one long tube. You know, it's a complicated tube, but there is the opening in the mouth and your anus, and it does not essentially open up anywhere else. We have like some permeable linings, but there's no opening inside your body. So digestion starts in your mouth. Really, the smell of food triggers the release of enzymes in your mouth, salivary amylase, which help to break down carbs. So if that's why if you're eating fast or not taking the time to really appreciate your food, you're skipping a whole step of digestion. So your gut is where, or your digestive tract is where food is broken down and nutrients are absorbed. So if at any point digestion is not optimal, it is affecting how you are digesting and breaking down the food. So you may become nutrient deficient over time. It is home to about 70% of your immune system. So this is that if you have compromised gut health, you may be more prone to colds and infections. 95% of your serotonin is produced in the small intestine, and that is that really strong gut-brain connection. There are other mechanisms there, but a lot of times people think that since serotonin is this neurotransmitter that affects your brain, that it must be created in your brain, but it's produced in your gut. So I have even seen clients where their anxiety or depression did not start until they started having gut issues. So why does all this matter? Here is just like a short list of conditions that are affected by your gut health. So can start with skin issues like cystic acne and eczema. I can definitely tell you my skin was flaring when I was having my gut issues. And it's kind of a trickle from like your gut affects your hormones, affects your skin microbiome. So it's all connected. Stress and poor sleep. So your gut health affects how you manage and adapt to stress, and affects your circadian rhythms, which affects your sleep, affects the hormones that are supposed to be like rising and falling during sleep. So there is the direct connection between gut and sleep and stress, but then also stress and sleep affecting your gut health. And we'll talk more about that. Digestive issues, obviously, like diarrhea, constipation, bloating, heartburn, abdominal pain. All of these things are red flags that something's going on in your gut. Your mood and mental health. So that gut-brain connection, your gut and your brain are constantly talking to each other. So we have the vagus nerve, which runs from your brain to your gut, which sends signals up and down. There's also the neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine being produced in your gut that are gonna affect your mental health. Brain fog. So that is that feeling of like a storm cloud just like sitting on your brain. So could be like delayed thoughts or trouble finding words. Usually if you have it, you know, and it's like hard to explain exactly what it feels like. Immunity and allergies. So a lot of allergies, even like seasonal allergies, can be improved when we improve your gut health. Food sensitivities. So I am big behind food sensitivities being a product of gut dysfunction and it's not the food itself. So for some people, like maybe you're gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant, but or lactose intolerant, but that's different. So when people say that they can't have apples or strawberries or beans, I do think for the most part, it's that there's something else going on that is causing you to not be able to digest and absorb them properly. And so you're having symptoms. Once we address those underlying causes, we should be able to introduce those foods again. When I was having my issues, I like cut out for a while apples and onions and dates because those seem to be problematic for me, but I eat them all the time now. Since I have worked on my gut health and am in a good place, I can tolerate them again. So your gut can affect your ability to lose weight. So this is pretty fascinating, but there are so many different types of bacteria, and some of them, the bad bacteria, actually can extract more calories from the food that you eat. So if you have dysbiosis, you may be more prone to weight gain or just holding on to weight. On the other end of that is if you are having digestive issues where you're not absorbing proper amounts of the nutrients from your food, you may actually have trouble gaining weight. And I see that a lot with like IBD. Risk for developing conditions such as autoimmune disease, certain cancers, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes, autism, and ADHD. There's really so much more. The world of gut health is still kind of unfolding. It's relatively new, like within the last 10 years. So they're still finding out so much more daily about what the gut can affect. The most common issues that I see that my clients complain of: bloating. So this could be after meals. It could be where you feel 6 months pregnant at the end of the day. Some bloating is normal, like if you eat a giant bowl of beans or broccoli, and like occasional bloating. But if you're having it daily or most days, or it's uncomfortable, you have to like change your clothes, there is something up. Constipation. So this is going less than daily. And then there's other indicators, which we'll talk about. Loose stools or diarrhea, restrictive diets. So often with gut issues, the first thing to go is food. So, it makes sense, I guess, that you think like, I'm eating and then having these symptoms, so it must be the food, I'll just cut that out. But really, this can become a cycle of making your gut weaker. And it also isn't good for your mental health. If you've ever been on a diet, it's like as soon as you cut something out, it's all that you think about. And then you feel like you can't go places, you can't be social because you have all of these restrictions in place. So not a big fan of restrictive diets. Food fears, and this kind of goes hand in hand with that, but if you eat a food and it makes you not feel good, you start to question food in general. And it's when you sit down to eat a meal, it's like, is this going to bother me? I don't know. And so it can be a cycle of just cutting out more food out of fear, and then it's weakening your gut, and then it's trouble to reintroduce them. Lack of energy. So if your body is not properly digesting and absorbing food, it is a lot more work for your body to break it down. And if you're not getting all those nutrients, you may become nutrient deficient. So there's a lot that can affect that. Hormonal imbalances. One example is if you are constipated. So pooping is one of our main ways to get rid of toxins and extra estrogen. So if you are not pooping, you're actually reabsorbing that estrogen and it's recirculating, and that can lead to estrogen dominance, which can really play with your hormones. Interfering with relationships. So I often hear, like, if you're not comfortable with your body, if you're having this bloating or you just feel icky, it can be really hard with relationships and people around you, especially being intimate. Afraid to go out in public if you don't know where the bathroom is, or you're gonna be in the car for a while, or things come up. It can be a very stressful situation. Avoiding restaurants and parties. So you may be isolating yourself because you don't know what is going to be in the food at the restaurant, or if there's anything that you're going to eat, or at the party, like what kind of things are going to come up. Are you going to look weird? Are people going to ask you questions? So that can really affect your mental health. Lack of confidence, again, like not feeling comfortable in your body, not liking the clothes that you have, thinking that they don't look right on you because of different physical issues from digestion. Feeling dismissed by doctors. I so often hear that somebody went to their doctor, told them their symptoms, and kind of like what happened to me, where it's like, oh, it's just IBS, like just do these things, it's fine. And it makes you feel like it's all in your head and like unheard, which can really not feel good. And then that feeling of like nobody understands. Maybe you don't know anybody else that has symptoms similar to you, or they're just not talked about. It's kind of taboo to like sit around and talk about your bowel movements. So it can feel very isolating. So let's talk about the gut microbiome to start with. Like, what is it? It's thrown around a lot, but like it's important to know what exactly it is. So it is in your large intestine. So this is like a little, I kind of think of it like a garden. So this is living in your large intestine, your colon. It is trillions of microbes. So bacteria, archaea, fungi, yeast, and the makeup of it, what it looks like, is completely unique to you. So it's like a fingerprint. Nobody has the same 2 microbiomes, which I think is a very important piece when we figure out our plan for reversing your gut issues is like, it's not going to look cookie cutter. Like if you ever do see a practitioner saying like, oh, if you have this, do this, take these supplements, eat these foods, it doesn't really make sense because you're different from everybody else. These trillions of microbes can be good, bad, or neutral. So if you have gone on antibiotics, it may have killed off some of the good bacteria. If you've been on a low fiber diet and like high saturated fat, high processed, you're feeding you're feeding the bad microbes while kind of starving the good microbes. So this balance of good versus bad is what determines many health outcomes. So an imbalance, more bad bacteria than good bacteria, is called dysbiosis. And the more diversity of the microbes, the better. So we want lots of different types because they do different functions in your body. Your diet and how you feed the microbes has a dramatic effect on the microbiome. So they like to eat fiber. If you aren't eating fiber for whatever reason, they can starve, they can dwindle down, and then this in turn can make your gut weaker. And then in as little as 24 hours, you can change the makeup of your microbiome. So it doesn't take long to start changing it, but if you go back to your old ways, it's going to go right back just as quick. So consistency is really the key. And then let's just go over the poop chart, just so you know. It's a handy little tool to have. So it's called the Bristol stool chart, and it is from 1 to 7. So you can see 1 is constipation, it's hard, those hard little pellets, and then 7 is like liquid diarrhea. So ideally you want a 3 or a 4, kind of like a sausage or a snake. And you would you want to have 1 to 3 bowel movements daily. So less than 1 daily can be constipation, more than 3, maybe diarrhea or the loose stools. So constipation is a major cause of bloating. So even if you are going daily, sometimes you can still be constipated. And like the next bullet says, if you can be constipated and have diarrhea. So that is where you're having this solid mass that's not coming out and then liquid is coming around it. And so this can all cause bloating because you're just getting backed up and food is fermenting higher up, which can cause the bloating. Root causes of digestive issues. Actually, going back to the poop real quick. Also, it's really helpful to look at your poop. People think it's weird, but your poop says a lot about you. So take a look at what it looks like, the shape, if there's food bits in it, what color, if there's mucus. Yeah, so there's so much that you can tell from it. Okay, so the root causes. So a major root cause is poor digestion. So low stomach acid. Oftentimes people are told they have high stomach acid, but symptoms can be the same for low stomach acid. So it can be a burning in your chest, like heartburn. Can also be feeling like there is a brick in your stomach when you eat, so a heaviness. And so low stomach acid, low digestive enzymes, bile insufficiency in themselves are not necessarily a root cause. They are, but then we also have to think lower as to like, why do you have low stomach acid? Why isn't your body making enough digestive enzymes or bile? If you've had your cholecystectomy, your gallbladder taken out, okay, that makes sense. Like we can take supportive measures there. But oftentimes, if we find out that any of these are happening in your body, we will supplement to reverse the digestive issues while we are working on the deeper root causes. So some reasons you may not be making enough stomach acid or digestive enzymes could be chronically stressed. It's impairing your body's mechanisms. It could be an H. pylori infection. Could be dysbiosis. So we really need to dig a little bit deeper. Slow motility. So motility is the rate at which food and food particles are moving through your intestines. So we have a motility of our stomach, a motility of our small intestine, and a motility of our large intestine. So slow motility of the stomach is called gastroparesis, and that is usually like we have to alter the diet, but that can be caused by diabetes or blood sugar imbalances. Slow motility of the small intestine is one of the major causes of SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and that is where bacteria is going from your large intestine, where it's supposed to be, up into your small intestine. And you can have major symptoms because food is being fermented in the wrong place. And then the motility of the large intestine could cause bloating, constipation. So if you wake up and you're bloated, or you take a sip of water and you're bloated, sometimes that can be a result of slow motility of your large intestine. And then the damaged migrating motor complex, the MMC. So this is almost like an electrical wave that takes place in your small intestine in a fasting state, which means like an hour and a half to 2 hours without eating, without drinking something with stevia or sugar. So really like just water in between meals. And that is it's a super important mechanism that clears out food particles from the small intestine to the large intestine. If you have a damaged migrating motor complex, it's not being properly swept out, which can lead to the bacterial overgrowth or SIBO. So dysbiosis of the gut microbiome, we talked about, it is that imbalance of the good and the bad bacteria. And this alone can cause bloating, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, brain issues like brain fog or anxiety. So that is a really important piece. And that can be caused by a low fiber, high processed food diet, NSAIDs, medications, chronic stress, not getting enough sleep. And then there's other things like thyroid issues. So there's a lot that we need to look at for that. So dysbiosis is a root cause, but then there's also a reason why you have dysbiosis. Adhesions, which are like bands of scar tissue. So that could be from surgery, like an abdominal surgery, your gallbladder removed, a C-section, could also be from endometriosis. You may have structural issues where you could have a blockage, or if you've had your gallbladder removed. And then past trauma is a big one that I see, because it can affect your vagus nerve, which can then affect motility. It affects your migrating motor complex, can lead to dysbiosis, can lead to how you process stress. So trauma, undealt with trauma, can be significant. And there's a lot that we can do to strengthen your vagus nerve. But I do also recommend working with a therapist at the same time. Food poisoning or traveler's diarrhea. So food poisoning is a major cause of SIBO as well, or post-infectious IBS, because when your body is exposed to food poisoning, it produces antibodies. And then these antibodies can actually affect your nerves and affect motility of the small intestine. So there is a test to see if you have the antibodies present, but there's a lot that we can do to address symptoms, or if we suspect that you have food poisoning. Low fiber diet, high processed saturated fat diet. So this is literally feeding the dysbiosis. Parasites, bacterial overgrowth. So that could be a bacterial overgrowth of the small intestine or the large intestine. And then a yeast overgrowth. So that could be something like Candida. And my favorite way to look for these is using the GI map stool test, the functional stool test, which I will tell you more about. Chronic stress. So there are so many reasons that this can mess with your digestion. So one is, if you are in this chronic state of fight or flight, blood flow is going to your extremities. You need to be ready to like run or fight, whatever you're going to do to survive. And the blood flow is being taken away from your digestive tract. So if you try to eat in this state, you're not making enough stomach acid, you're not making enough digestive enzymes, the motility is going to be affected. So digestion is just like completely off if you are in this chronic state of stress. And I do think it's important to consider all possible causes of stress. It's not just like work, deadlines, or sitting in traffic. It's also not eating enough. That is a major stressor that I see for women. Not sleeping enough, being in negative relationships, or putting yourself around people that just like are negative and bring you down. So there's a lot of different reasons that our body can be in that stress state. And then medications like antibiotics, birth control, NSAIDs like ibuprofen, and proton pump inhibitors. So these are directly linked with leaky gut. But there is a road to healing. So I like to focus on first identify and treat. So I think it's really important for us to identify what is going on. We do this with a series of I get really into your history. We do like a couple of assessments, really understand what has been going on pretty much your whole life. It can be a lengthy process, but super thorough. And it's really important to look at all of it because I do believe in this, I call it an inflammation bucket. So you have this bucket and I talked about, it was Lyme disease, antibiotics, stress, restrictive diet, NSAIDs, and birth control, and then alcohol. And then it spilled over, but it wasn't the alcohol alone that was the problem. It was all of these things. So we really need to do a deep dive into looking at everything. And then I do really believe in testing. So I use the functional stool test. It's called the GI map, and that looks for H. pylori, parasites, worms, fungi, yeast. It looks at your digestion by looking at different markers, inflammation, immune response, because your immune system's in your gut, so we can see how your immune is responding. And then dysbiosis, so levels of some good bacteria, bad bacteria, what that looks like. Sometimes we also do a SIBO test, so that is a breath test, and these are both done at home. So that will tell us, I help guide you with what makes sense. Does it seem like you're having more symptoms of SIBO, or should we look for something else? Sometimes we do both. And then we can move on to the restore. So this is where if you have low stomach acid, we're going to replace it or support your body in making more. Something like herbal bitters. We can use ginger to help stimulate motility. Maybe we'll use some herbs like parsley or spirulina to help with the detox process. So really restoring your body's digestion and what it should be doing. We will also work on stress management, breathing techniques, meal hygiene. So there is a lot to do with restoring your gut health. And nutrition is obviously a big one. So working with balancing your blood sugars, making sure you get a carbohydrate, a fiber, a protein, and healthy fat at all meals. You're properly nourishing your body. And then we can move on to the rebuild phase. So that is where maybe we'll add in more fermented foods, work on diversity of plants to restore your gut microbiome, maybe probiotics, what else? Types of exercise to help strengthen your microbiome, maybe some supplements like L-glutamine, or we can work on getting them from food sources to help heal and seal your gut lining. So it really depends on what is going on, but I help you put together an idea of what you can continue to do, because I think it's also important to note that you get to this place where you feel really good, but that doesn't mean that you're done, you've met your goal, and now you're healed. Gut stuff and health in general is an ongoing process. So knowing that what things have helped you, what you can do in the future, so that if you do have a flare, if you, I know for me, it's stress. If I get have a really stressful situation, I may have a flare and I might start having some symptoms, but because I know what to do, I can put those practices in place and really help to mitigate the symptoms. So let's get into some case studies so you can see how to apply some of this stuff. So Lynn came to me with over 10 years of digestive issues, like frequent bowel movements 4 to 5 times a day. They were loose and urgent. She had belching, gas, especially worse at nighttime, abdominal pain, brain fog, heavy periods, and constant hunger. She would eat and then feel hungry again. She was diagnosed with IBS and psoriasis in 1998, and she avoids dairy and too much fiber. So since 1998, she doesn't really eat any cruciferous veggies. She was avoiding beans, flaxseed, whole grains, so fairly low fiber diet. So we did the GI map stool test. So she was very high for H. pylori. So the symptoms of H. pylori are heartburn, that feeling of you can have severe abdominal pain, especially worse when you have not eaten. Can also gas, nausea, bloating, and H. pylori also causes low stomach acid. So H. pylori is a bacterial infection in your stomach. So it can cause low stomach acid, which is going to affect all downstream digestion as well. And then this is looking at the bad bacteria, the opportunistic bacteria. So she had pretty severe dysbiosis. So this is showing high levels of inflammation in the gut. These can lead to loose stools. And then this one, the streptococcus especially, is a marker for low stomach acid. So it makes sense that H. pylori is causing low stomach acid, which is causing an overgrowth of this one type of bacteria. So going back to her root causes, so H. pylori for sure, and H. pylori is spread through saliva. So if I treat somebody with it, we usually try to treat their, or at least test their partner, because if we treated it in her, but our partner had it, he could give it right back to her. So it's important to kind of look at the whole big thing with H. pylori, everybody. And so H. pylori does cause low stomach acid, as we said, which affects digestion in many ways. And then she had dysbiosis of the large intestine, and that was likely caused by low fiber diet for years, like many years. She was on antibiotics, she was on birth control for a long time, and she also had a super stressful job. So she was chronically stressed. So our plan was, and we worked together for like 6 months. So it's important to note that we didn't just do all of this at one time. It's a plan. So it was over a period of months, and she did feel significantly better once we treated the H. pylori, but we still had other things to work on and really boost her microbiome. So first we started with bitters. So herbal bitters before meals. We did not supplement with hydrochloric acid, HCl, because if you have H. pylori, they're like scrappy little buggers, and they actually will burrow deeper into the stomach lining, and that can make it harder to get them out. So that is why I don't just recommend everyone do HCl, because if we don't know if you have H. pylori, it could actually make it worse. And then we did a 4-week treatment for H. pylori infection using a variety of supplements. We also put her on a specific probiotic that has been shown to also help kick H. pylori out. And then also the core supplements, which I recommend for most people. She hadn't been on any supplements. And because of low stomach acid, you're not digesting, you're not digesting food properly, and extracting all of the nutrients from the food. So it's common to have some nutrient deficiencies with that. And then plant diversity, we really worked on building back up her fiber and different types of plants. She was excited to tell me that she ate a giant bowl of Brussels sprouts and had like some gas, because that's normal. But she felt wonderful, and she was so excited. She said her husband thought she was crazy because she was so excited to eat a bowl of Brussels sprouts. But these things are real. If you have digestive issues, you know. We worked on her stress management. This was a big one. So they started going for walks as a family. They actually got a dog, started going on walks as a family. That helped. She also started rowing. So she had a rower and started rowing, and this was also part of her daily movement, but that was also a form of stress management for her. And she actually switched jobs as well. And then mindful eating. So sitting down, chewing. They started doing some gratitude at meal times, and that helps your body to also create the proper amounts of digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid. And then the outcome. She had 1 to 2 form stools daily. They were no longer urgent or loose. She felt satisfied after meals, not like super hungry or those abdominal pains when she hadn't eaten. Her gas was significantly improved, which also improved her relationship. Brain fog was diminished. That started to really reverse, well, with the gut healing, but also we put in some minerals that she had been lacking, so that helps. And then better sleep. She reintroduced dairy and fibrous foods, Brussels sprouts, flax, and beans. Hooray! And that will further strengthen her gut so that she doesn't have issues down the road. Enjoyment in eating. She looked forward to cooking and eating the same thing as her family. And she was eating out, like with her friends, that she hadn't been doing. Skin improvements. The psoriasis was pretty much gone. And then she started having more regular periods. She also came off birth control at this time, so I had to help support her body during that process, and then it did level out. Okay, so case study number 2. Casey had abdominal pain, bloating, nausea, gas, and brain fog daily. She had significant food fears. She was afraid to eat, didn't know what was going to cause symptoms, and didn't want to be out of the house if like she ate something and then went out and then had these issues. And she was also seeking a community. She didn't know anybody else that had gut health issues. And she just wanted to be able to like be around a group that had similar things. So she joined my group program. And we did the GI map stool test. Severe dysbiosis. So these are the normal bacteria. So we want to see them normal in normal ranges. And you can see a bunch of these are low, just showing that she was depleted of good bacteria. And then down here, the Bacteroidetes and the Firmicutes are larger groups of bacteria. So again, this is just showing a weak gut, like whole groups of bacteria are low. And we found that she had a parasite. So super high. And a parasite feeds on the host. So was essentially eating her food, extracting the nutrients from her food. And that was causing, the parasite was likely causing a lot of the abdominal pain, the nausea, and then also downstream was also causing issues with the microbiome, which caused the dysbiosis and further exacerbated her symptoms. So her root causes, she had endometriosis, which creates scar tissue in itself. And then she had also had 4 laser surgeries to help with the endometriosis. And then a hysterectomy, more scar tissue. And then she had been on birth control for a long time. She had a history of disordered eating, binging, and intermittent fasting, which can all lead to dysbiosis, and chronic stress, which can affect the amount of digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid you're producing. So lots going on there. So first, before we even touched that parasite, we needed to rebuild her microbiome because she was in such a state of dysbiosis. She had no good guys to help her fight back. So we worked on increasing the diversity of the plants to feed all the different types of bacteria and get them thriving. We also did a prebiotic supplement and worked on including prebiotic food sources and added some fermented foods. And then we went for that parasite, which she named Sam. So that was a 4-week parasite removal using different herbal supplements. And then I also needed to support her detox pathways, which we did with food and some supplements. And we worked a lot on lifestyle. So chewing her food to help with, if you chew your food, it's going to be a lot easier for your body to extract what it needs from it. And then stress reduction and eating enough calories. So a big takeaway for her was just properly nourishing her body, balancing blood sugars, but also just eating what felt good and nourished. We focused a lot on like the hunger scale, eating when she's hungry, stopping when she's satisfied, and just learning what that actually was in her body. So the outcome, we retested after 4 weeks of the, 4 weeks of the parasite removal, and then 4 weeks of just rebuilding her microbiome. Then we tested again, and her microbiome was significantly improved. There was no parasite. Sam was gone. And she no longer had abdominal pain and bloating after eating. She literally, it disappeared as soon as we got to Sam. And then She had a diversified diet. She was eating so many different types of food, different types of fibers and healthy fats. And she decreased her food fear significantly because she wasn't having these symptoms. So she was able to eat at other people's houses. She wasn't like nitpicking the ingredients. She was feeling confident. She also was focusing on nourishing herself. So wasn't counting calories or worrying that she was eating too much or how much she weighed. We really worked a lot on healing her relationship with food, which was huge. And then she wasn't having bloating, and she had more consistent bowel movements. And she was also thinking more clearly, and she was in a better mood, which she said her family greatly appreciated. So this leads me to my group program. So if you are not interested, feel free, you can sign off now. What I wanted to tell you about how you can, I've shared all of this great stuff with you, but how you can actually apply it and take action in your own life. And so my group program, it's a 12-week small group coaching program. And it takes you through my proven framework so that you can finally find relief from digestive issues. So we will identify and treat what is going on, and then we're going to restore your microbiome, and then we will rebuild it and give you that toolbox to know how to keep a thriving microbiome in your life and feel good, not just like a short-term fix. Once we treat those root causes, it is lasting. And then, so with that, we have weekly coaching calls, and this is a great community, and we work through your issues. It's a small group, so we have plenty of time to discuss everything and really individualize it to you. You also get video modules, so that is like the foundation, and you have weekly actions, and I keep you in line with like where we should go. So there's a lot of direction and clarity. And there is an online private community. You can post questions anytime, and I get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, usually 24 hours. And then gut healthy guides and recipes. You can also, if you want like a little more personal approach, you can upgrade with monthly one-on-one sessions. And then there is an optional but highly encouraged GI map stool testing. That is an add-on. You don't have to do it. You will absolutely benefit from the program itself. The stool testing just kind of expedites things. And if you schedule a call by this Friday, you do get $150 off. So you don't have to necessarily book it by this Friday, but you do need to schedule a call, and we can just talk. There's no strings attached. We can just see what your gut issues look like, how long they've been going on, what we think would be the right course of action, and if working together seems like a good fit. So I highly encourage you to do that. And then there are some one-on-one options for working together, but I really love the group program and the setting. So thank you. Obviously, you probably know my Instagram, my website. Feel free to reach out to me with any kind of questions. You can DM me if you want to set up a call, or there is a link in my Instagram bio to apply. There's also a page that has a little bit more information on Mind Your Gut Method, some testimonials. So feel free to reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to help you feel better and find relief.